Hey guys, SMD here, and this is the item builds for Broodmother. So for starting items, you should buy 3 Clarities, a Mango, a Quelling Blade, and 2 Pulled Tangos. 2 Pulled Tangos will help you sustain enough with your HP pull until you get your Soul Ring, and 3 Clarities in the Mango will also provide you with enough mana and mana regen until you're able to get that Soul Ring as well, which once you have will give you some decent HP regeneration, and as well as the burst mana that you can get whenever you use the active ability. So basically the whole point of these 3 Clarities and that Mango is to just secure your Soul Ring, so you can use these Clarities very aggressively even if they get broken somewhat easily, just to get enough mana that you can use a few more nukes and get a few more CS before you're able to get that Soul Ring up. The Mango is another item that you're basically just buying for the active ability. It's basically one free Soul Ring charge that you can use whenever you want, and you can just use that to secure yourself a CS in the early stages of the lane, and it also gives you some more decent HP regeneration until you're able to get that Soul Ring up. Another cool thing I saw Ramses doing with his Clarities was he was popping them very aggressively like I had just mentioned, but basically whenever the enemies came and tried to pop his Clarities, it would potentially put them out of position where he can potentially go for a kill, or in some cases the enemies would just realize how by trying to pop those Clarities they would put them in danger, so they would just leave him alone and he would basically be Claritying while the enemies were close enough to hit them, but they were too afraid to hit him. And the Quelling Blade is just decent. It is just really nice on Broodmother since you have low base damage, and it'll basically just help you secure last hits in the early game as well until you build up some spiders and are able to outlast hit and out-deny the enemy quite easily. So with your team's bounty rune gold, you shouldn't really be buying a salve on Broodmother, just put that money towards your Soul Ring. Another build I saw Ramses doing was just 2 Clarities, a Mango, and a Quelling Blade, as well as with those 2 Pulled Tangos I talked about before. And this is basically just so if he's against a hero that has a low cooldown spell that you're going to be spamming, say a Bristleback or a Bat Rider, if they're doing some lane swapping shenanigans on the enemy team, he'll be able to get that stick faster by not buying 3 Clarities and just by buying 2. So if he sees one of those heroes in his lane, he can just send out that stick even faster. So for early game, you want to buy a Soul Ring, a Medallion, and potentially more Clarities if needed. So Soul Ring, like I've already mentioned, will just give you a lot more mana, as well as that HP regen and some more HP to just sort of help you cast those nukes to build up those spiders, and just be able to duck into the jungle easier if needed, and kill the enemies if they ever step out of position. Medallion, once again, will help you farm the jungle faster. You can cast the active ability on Ancients, as well as giving you more solo kill potential if the enemies ever step out of position. Medallion and some attacks from your spiders, if you have a big enough army, should be enough to take them down quite fast. And more Clarities will just give you more mana to spam more nukes. If you need them, you can buy them as well. Bottle isn't really needed on Brood since you'll get more mana from Soul Ring, and you already have HP regen from being inside of your webs, and you don't really want to go looking for runes too much, especially the bounty runes that are quite far away from the mid lane nowadays. And brown boots, once again, aren't really needed on Broodmother. It sort of slow downs your other item timings, and you're already quite fast well in those webs. So brown boots is also something I wouldn't really recommend buying. So for core items, we have the first build, which will be Orchid, BKB, and then potentially going back for a Deso and then a Nullifier. And the second build would be Desolator into Mask of Madness, BKB, and then Nullifier. And then after that, you can also potentially go back for the Orchid if you want to as well. Sometimes you can get Power Treads or Phase Boots after Orchid or Deso, so basically after your first big item you can go back for Power Treads or Phase Boots if you want to. In the past, Phase Boots were quite common on Broodmother, as they'd synergize pretty nice with Mask of Madness, which I believe has been nerfed since then. And nowadays, if I do see people end up buying boots on Broodmother, it does seem to be the Power Treads, and I think that's just so you can get that attack speed coming out from the Power Treads. You can potentially do some tread swapping to get more mana while casting your nukes, as well as the fact that the extra attack speed synergizes decently with your ultimate, giving you damage, so you can basically just attack faster, lifesteal more, and try to just be better at those man fights. So for the reason why Orchid is a good item on Broodmother is because it provides a lot of mana regeneration, attack speed, and solo kill potential, and it turns into Bloodthorn in the late game, and it synergizes really well with Nullifier. Deso makes pushing towers extremely easy. Mask of Madness helps you farm with a Deso, and Mom Roshing becomes super easy. And the silence isn't too bad on Brood since you should already have your webs down before using the active, and you should be using your ultimate before using the active as well. BKB can make it so you can't get disabled and are able to move freely in fights. You can also use it to secure racks or towers if needed, but watch out as it does have quite a long cooldown nowadays. Nullifier is really good against a lot of items that counter Broodmother, such as Force Staff, Ghost Scepter, Glimmer Cape, or Yule Scepter. So by buying a Nullifier, you can basically negate all of the enemy's ability to use those items. It also synergizes really well with Orchid, as you can basically doom a target, and since you have cooldown reduction talent as well, you can basically be dooming a target quite often, and every time you cast your Orchid and Nullifier on someone, it should usually secure you a kill, as well as just those items being insanely strong in team fights. So if you get an Aegis and you're trying to push high ground with your team, just having those items in that high ground push can make the push that much easier. So for late game items, we have Bloodthorn, as you can crit the high damage you get from your ult, and it gives you the silence and mana regen that you're already getting from the Orchid as well. Butterfly gives you a lot of damage and the ability to flutter if you're slowed out of your webs, but MKB is a popular item versus Brood, so if the enemies are going MKB, you might not want to build a Butterfly, and I would recommend getting armor instead. Which brings us into AC, which is good versus high physical damage and MKB buyers, and it also increases the tower damage you and your spiders will do. Manta is good if you need another purge, so if your BKB isn't enough, say they have lots of silences, you might want to buy a Manta as well. Lincolns can be good versus heroes like Doom, Bane, Slardar, or Spirit Breaker to make it so they can't get vision of you or disable you to the point where you're just dying. Scotty can be decent as well, as it gives nice stats and damage into the late game. Moonshard is a good item you can buy once you're 6 slotted, as it'll just give you more attack speed and it doesn't take up an inventory slot. And Refresher can be alright for your BKB in the late game as well, and it will refresh your ultimate. And it will also refresh your web charges, bringing you up to the maximum 8. Boots of Travel once again can be a decent item into the super late game, as well as upgrading to Boots of Travel level 2, as it'll just give you more tools to get team fights with your team, especially if you have 8 web charges in stock. You can potentially Boots of Travel level 2 to one of your teammates, play some web charges, go for a kill or two, win the fight, delete them, and go back to wherever your main web placements were. Some situational items would be Halberd, as it can make man fighting easier for you, especially against heroes with cleave, say a Sven. You can cast a Halberd on him and you won't be able to kill your spiders. Solar Crest can also be decent, as if you already have a medallion, you can buy a Solar Crest and potentially disassemble it for a Butterfly or a Halberd later on. But in general, you shouldn't buy Solar Crest just to keep it into the late game. You'll only be wanting to buy this if you plan on disassembling it. Abyssal can be somewhat decent if you need more lockdown and a way to cancel TPs if you're looking for solo kills, but keep in mind that Nullifier will also negate the enemy's ability to use TPs as well as cancel them, so Nullifier in general I would say is better than Abyssal nowadays on Broodmother. Blink used to be somewhat common in the past, as you can just blink to the backline, potentially orchid a hero and take them down. Especially with Nullifier, this can be quite strong to position yourself in team fights. So say the enemies have an Oracle sitting in the backlines waiting to save his teammates, you can blink onto him, use your Orchid and Nullifier, basically doom him, and then take him down in a few attacks. Also, if your team is fighting the enemies on one side of the map, which is quite far from their base, you can potentially just blink into their base and start hitting their racks and towers before they're able to react, and then hopefully your blinks back up while they do start to TP in, and you can potentially just blink away to safety. MKB can also be somewhat decent against evasion, but now it's arguably worse, as you won't be lifestealing as much as it gives you less damage, but you are attacking faster, so you could be arguing that you'll heal more with your lifesteal because of the fact that you are attacking faster. So that sort of goes both ways, but the evasion has also been nerfed, and I don't think Broodmother benefits as much from the proc damage as other heroes do, for example Weaver with his double attack, but MKB can still be strong against a lot of evasion. So here's some items that used to be somewhat common, and I'll tell you why I wouldn't recommend them nowadays. That would be Daedalus. This item used to be really popular on Brood since you can crit the high damage, but nowadays items like Bloodthorn are just thought to be better and synergize better with items like Nullifier. Midas used to be somewhat common, and sure, you do have cooldown reduction so you can use it more often, but you already farm so fast and you can just buy other items that'll make you stronger in the early game, while basically speeding up your farm anyways, and you sort of want to end the game as early as you possibly can, so Midas just sort of goes against what you want to do on Broodmother. Echo Saber used to be considered decent, as it gives you lots of mana regen as well as that double hit with your ultimate, allowing you to deal a lot of damage instantly and heal a lot of health pretty quickly, and as well as the fact that it will work on towers, so with your ultimate on towers you can do a lot of damage really quickly as well. But nowadays items like Orchid and BKB are just thought to be more better than Echo Saber, and they're sort of using the same components that you'd buy for it, giving you basically similar effects. So Echo Saber isn't that good on Broodmother anymore in my opinion. Diffusal Blade used to be somewhat common, but it doesn't give you that purge anymore for Ghost Scepters and things like that, so the Nullifier would just be better in my opinion. Necronomicon used to be somewhat common on Broodmother just to make you push even faster, but nowadays you can sort of scale into the late game as well on Broodmother by buying these other more team fight oriented items like BKBs, Bloodthorns, and Nullifiers, as well as if you want to just be able to push really fast, you can still go for those items like Deso, but Necronomicon is just sort of too all in on Broodmother. Radiance used to be somewhat common, but if you're buying a relic, I would recommend you just go for that Nullifier for those reasons I've already mentioned, and Nullifier is also cheaper than Radiance, so I wouldn't really recommend you going for a Radiance anywhere in Broodmother nowadays, as there are just better items to be buying. Dagon and E-Blade used to be somewhat common on Broodmother, just to sort of instantly kill anyone who ever walks into your webs, but it can sort of be countered by items much easier than items like Nullifier and Bloodthorn. Also, a Dagon 5 and an E-Blade is more expensive than a Bloodthorn and a Nullifier, and Orchid Nullifier is just much cheaper than a Dagon 5 E-Blade combo. So if you just go Orchid Nullifier and then back for Bloodthorn later, it's just much stronger than a Dagon and an E-Blade, as well as with the fact that it's cheaper. So for item timings, you should have your Soul Ring and Medallion around 3 to 6 minutes, your Orchid from around 11 to 14 minutes, or if you're going for the Desolator Mask of Madness build, you should have the Soul Ring, Medallion, Desolator, and Mask of Madness all by around 12 to 16 minutes. The thing with both of these builds is you usually want to get your BKB around 20 minutes. With Orchid, you should probably have it around 2 to 3 minutes earlier than with Deso and Mask of Madness, as those two items together are more expensive. But the whole thing with Broodmother is you want to be able to hit that 20-minute timing, so you're just really strong. You should be over-leveled by this point as you were farming really fast, and you shouldn't really have been fighting too much until you have that BKB. So once you do, you can just take a Roshan potentially, or just try to high ground with your team, or have them split push while you try to also split push a different lane, and just go high ground alone with the ability to BKB and run away, or BKB and just man up and fight them if you need to. So with that said, if you are slightly behind and you did end up going for the Desolator build, you can potentially skip a Mask of Madness so you can hit that 20-minute timing for your BKB as well. So that was the item builds for Broodmother. Thanks for watching and leave a comment below.